Happy New Year, everyone. Uh, Hope everyone had a good holiday season. And did everyone get a chance to look at the agenda? We have a herd of items on there tonight. And the first thing is the annual report. I sent out I believe it was yesterday, a slightly updated version of the annual report, and got an email today from Susan Brower that it's due January 10th. And I found that date a little strange because that's Saturday. So
Yeah, actually, I think at some point it was the 12th, which makes more sense.
that makes more sense, yeah. So Mike sent me a couple of edits in a version today that I really like. And with your opinion, with your okay, Mike, I will forward that to everybody on the committee tomorrow and ask that everyone have comments or additions or subtractions into me no later than Friday. If we have to submit this next week, then I would like to get that submitted with obviously the committee's concurrence. Anybody have any objections?
Not at all.
All right, so then the plan right now is everyone will have an updated copy with Mike's edits included, and if there's no comments, I will submit it to the town on Monday. Item number 2, and this may be a fairly long discussion item, is the HABs protocol. We had the meeting, well, everybody was there with the RecCom and the rep from the Board of Health. And I've had complete radio silence since then. I've reached out to them asking if there's been any further word, and nothing. Have any of you folks heard anything from any of the members on either RecCom or Board of Health?
Yes. Laura had, in her role as the member chair of the Board of Health, asked me to specifically identify for her what testing, what the test strips were specifically, and where we would have the tests, laboratory tests done. So I responded that they were the Abraxas test strips for recreational water, and we would have the testing done at Northeast Laboratories in Rocky Hill.
Yeah, that's Connecticut. And that's what I thought, because Mike, when we had the HABs outbreak this past summer, we sent a test off. I don't remember where that was sent to, but that was like $700 to get that test done, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was sent off to a lab in Washington State.
Okay.
And they did actually analytical testing, for the actual concentration of the, I believe the actual concentration of the aflatoxin, of the toxins, and like three different types of toxins. But it was crazy expensive, and you don't even want to know how much shipping was, because you have to ship it overnight. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Never do that again. But
well, that's where Northeastern is better, because their prices are more affordable, and yeah, there's the logistics of getting it down there, but that's it's still going to be a lot more cost effective than sending it out to the left coast.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the firm in Washington did test for the cyanocystins.
Yeah.
And what else did they test for? Do you remember? I'm just kind of curious.
They went for enumeration and the levels. I still have the results in my email. I can forward everybody another copy of the results that we got back from them.
Well, my understanding, there's literally hundreds of toxins, so we'll never get a report of all of the toxin levels.
No.
So I was just kind of curious which other 2 toxins the lab in Washington happened to test for.
Yeah, we have that information, and they it were toxins they recommended given that we had an oscillatorio bloom. You know, they were informed of that.
Okay.
But basically, you know, all the levels were low or non-detect.
And the other thing I was a little curious about was the Department of Health refers to the concentration of two cyanotoxins, and I forget the name of the second one.
Yeah, one is
So
microcystins, and I can never remember the name of the
Yeah.
other one either.
I think it has some variation of the word cylinder in it. But in any case, I don't know that they actually have anybody test for that, though. Specifically, do they? Do they have Northeast test for that when they send something sample out to Northeast?
If I remember right, looking at Northeast's website, they have the ability to test for the two major types of cyanobacterias that the state is looking at, the microcystins and the ones that no one can ever remember the name for it. And I'm pretty sure that even the Mass DPH uses Northeast Labs for
It
their
does.
testing.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, so then so I don't think they would have any problems with, you know, any lab results we got back from Northeast.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah. And I did talk with, where is her name? Christine Baldwin from Wayland's Department of Rec Department. And she never said specifically, but I think that they have been using the protocol that they have in place for the Wayland Town beaches. And they haven't had closures for the last 2 years. She was very excited about the protocol that they have in place because it seems to work based on actually testing for the values of both the cell counts and the the cyanotoxins. They're experiencing the same thing that we had last summer when we sent out the tests and got the very low cell counts and the low cyanotoxin numbers as well in the non-detectable or not non-detectable ranges, very low or non-detectable ranges. So the protocol is working for the town of Wayland, which I think is a good selling point for us. I also talked with Katie Liming from it's a whole mouthful, the
The organization in Worcester.
Yeah. And she's also on the Blackstone Collaborative, which is they do a lot of work mostly in the Blackstone River proper, but some work with the surrounding towns in the Blackstone River watershed. And basically no one within the watershed is doing cyanotoxin testings that I'm able to find out. And they're not concerned about cyanotoxin in the Blackstone because they don't have a whole lot of slow water areas. The areas I've seen of the Blackstone, that puppy moves. So they're, maybe in some of the towns in the watershed, but I don't think a whole lot of towns are doing any sort of testing along the lines of what we're looking at, emulating what Wayland is doing.
So my takeaway that Wayland's protocol was to avoid having to close the beach when there were blooms in other locations.
Also including in the North Pond where Waylandstown Beach is. But Cochituate is such a large lake. They've had blooms in the very north end of the lake up in Framingham. And that sends off, warning flags for all the communities in the North Basin, which is basically Framingham and Wayland. So when they get alerted that we've had a bloom here in Framingham, then Wayland will start with the protocol at the Wayland Town Beach, you know, trying to avoid having to close the town beach. They do the same thing when they get the alerts from the Middle Basin and the Southern Basin, in all three basins, because there's the Mass Department of Public Health. Their go-to has been, we issue an advisory for the lake, and everybody then is supposed to start following the protocol. But Wayland has had success with not closing their beach down for the past 2 seasons by following the protocol and being able to show with scientific numbers, hey, we don't have the cell counts, we don't have the cyanotoxin levels. And
are they having samples sent to the laboratory to do the cell counts and
yes,
concentrations?
yes. So they're getting enumeration and, all the fancy buzzword stuff. So they're getting cell counts and toxin levels at the same time, which is the result that we got from the very expensive test that we sent out to the left coast last year. And that's what we can get that from aquatic analysts, where we normally send our phyto samples to, but their turnaround is a normal 7 to 10 day turnaround.
And is Wayland using Northeast Labs?
Yes, Wayland is using Northeast Labs. So pretty much we're just, photocopying Wayland's protocol and adjusting it to our needs here. Because we're a 40-acre lake and there's 40,000 acres in Cochituate. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's, it's a big lake.
Well, to the extent they're using it at the beach, then it would apply to what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Phycocyanin is the other one that you were looking for.
I was just going to say, I'm surprised that the Blackstone River is not interested in testing, because the main river might be flow fast, but they have plenty of beaches. You got the Silver Lake and Grafton, that's part of Blackstone.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like I said, the Blackstone Collaborative is concentrating more on the river itself. And, the rest of the watersheds are peripheral. So that's where that comes from.
And when I went and looked at the Worcester site,
yep,
it seemed to me that they were just trying to come up with a protocol for assessing whether or not a bloom was likely to occur based upon things they could test for fairly easily. And
talking with Katie, they have a lab that uses some sort of flow count, where they actually count cells as they come across the lighted whatever it is. It's part of the science I didn't understand. And it's mostly run by volunteers, and it's done on weekends. So I don't know exactly how much of it would be apropos to what we're proposing, but they've got some pretty good science going on over there.
So I discovered a Canadian site related to hazardous algae blooms, and it had on it 2 different papers which assessed all of the different methods of trying to determine whether or not you have a HAB. Fascinating, but it tells you, what it'll measure, how you measure it, and how good it is in telling you something. I'll send out the link. I think it's very.
Just going to ask you for that. Yeah, just going to ask you for that. But the Worcester web page, they have 22, I think, different testing sites on a lot of the ponds and lakes in the area, and they're basically using the stoplight protocol. So if they're finding very low levels of algae and toxins and phycocyanin, you know, I got the big buzzword. You know, it'll go from not green, but basically the color of the page. If they start getting elevated levels, it might change to yellow, and then if I get to, you know, hair on fire levels, it goes to red. And that's what our RecCom is using on their levels. And if we get everybody to buy off on this protocol, I think the stoplight levels is you know, really appropriate. And what Wayland is also doing on their town website, they're publishing the results of the tests when they come back, showing the cell counts and the toxin levels and which particular toxin they're finding, if it's microcystin or whether it's the phycocyanin. So, and what they're using that for is a public outreach kind of thing, saying, here's what we found, here's the information, we're not trying to hide anything, you know, so, you know, and, you know, why they're not closing the beach or anything like that. I think
that.
I think that's another very useful thing, because it gives the residents of the town hard data to go on.
They're using the test strips, right, as well?
They're using the test. Yep, the test strips is just the canary in the coal mine kind of thing. And then, you know, if they start seeing some troubling things on the test strips, that's when they'll go to the water samples and sending them off of the labs to get here's the cell counts and here's the toxin levels. And they're doing that about once or twice a month. It kind of sounds like a standard protocol kind of thing. And if they're doing that once a month, then the cost for those, the 7 to 10 day turnaround time, I think it's only like $100 or $110, which is, you know, pretty damn good. Yeah. Now, one of the notes I have written in here is, I think I would like to create flow charts, get flow charts on the different protocols that we're proposing. And one of the other things is, who's going to bear the cost for these? We have to try and find out who's going to be responsible for some of the costs. Is it going to be a cost sharing model where our committee is paying some of the funding, rec department is paying some of the funding, Board of Health is paying some of it, and then who's going to be responsible for what? So anybody have any ideas?
Well, I have started working on basically process maps.
Okay, beautiful.
And flow charts. And honestly, I think then once you have the flow chart finalized, you can figure out how often each of the testing events will occur and how much it's going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it'll be the test, and in the case of Northeast Labs, the tests and the cost to get the tests or the sample to the Rocky Hill. Mm-hmm. Which, if you're trying to do it basically overnight or the same day or the following day, which in some cases what you'll end up doing, is probably not that inexpensive. I mean, it'd be $120 to reimburse somebody at the IRS rate to have them drive back and forth to Rocky Hill.
Versus $30 or $40 to have FedEx overnight it.
Well, yeah, but it'd be FedEx overnight with delivery before noon, which might be more expensive.
But it's still probably less than $120 a pop if somebody drives it down.
Less than $120, I agree.
So how about division of labor? Who should be responsible for some of this stuff? You know, we're the ones pushing the idea to RecCom and the Board of Health. And is the Board of Health doing the weekly E. coli testing?
Yes.
Okay. So how difficult would it be for them at the same time they take the water sample for E. coli testing to run one of the the test strips. Well,
I don't
I
know
would
who's
almo-
collecting the sample for the E. coli, so.
but, but how do we get someone, how do
I
we
thought
get
we
some,
got to that point in our last meeting that we were getting kind of buy-in from the Board of Health and Upton Rec that, we've done our research, we're trying to support this process, but I think
I get-
it's, at this point, it's up to them to, for us to support them in the process, but for them to sort of start being responsible, taking up some of that responsibility, not only for the finances, but for testing, so. And that we
I-
work with them through that transition, but I feel like at some point, we're moving it on and we're supporting you guys through this process. This is what we want to do and help them through this trial period where we know that this summer is going to be a little bit of a trial period as we test
Mhm.
out the process and adjust. But I thought we got pretty much buy-in from them.
I thought we had also. I'm just trying to, get something on paper, because this is going to be a multi, I don't know, jurisdictional isn't the right word, but it's going to be a multi-pronged collaborative thing between our committee and RecCom and Board of Health. For me, for the science aspect of it, I would be willing to meet whoever from the Board of Health is going out once a week and getting the E. coli samples, just to see how the test strips work and what we're getting back from the test strips. Yeah.
I agree with that too. That's how we can support them too, is just to be engaged and be there, support them, being able to do it, be that person. But I really feel like they need to take some ownership.
Oh,
Have we-
absolutely.
Do I understand that there's a new hire at the Board of Health? That's a permanent hire now in Diane's place?
Matthew.
Matthew, so I wonder if this is a really good time actually for a new person to come on who may feel invested and wanting to be part of this process and help us move it forward and a little bit more in their direction, since they're the ones that have to look at the data and make the essential decision.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what Laura was saying at the meeting was that Chris, also, I think he's the chair of the Board of Health. He had some real,
No.
no?
He's on RecCom. Chris is on RecCom.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody on the Board of Health was also really interested in what we're proposing for them.
Yeah, Chris Murphy, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you're saying Chris, he's the one, he's on RecCom, and he's a scientist.
Yes.
So, yes.
Oh, yeah,
he'd be-
he had me send him the water quality results that we got from 24 and 25. So he could
Excellent.
review them. He was headed off to Wisconsin, I think he told me, for the holidays, and said he would look at it all when he got back. But I'm pretty sure Laura had said there was somebody else on the Board of Health, had young children, and our meeting was at bedtime, but he wanted to be there to put the little ones to bed.
Well, the two of them, Quinn and Farrell, are a married couple who are on the Board of Health, and they share the same little ones.
Okay.
So she's a sort of a nurse, and he's a biochemical tech person.
Okay.
So
So
he
maybe
may
it
have
was
been the
maybe it
one.
was Quinn that I was confusing, because Laura did say there was some interest from another member on the Board of Health.
Excellent. Great.
So
Great.
Now, my understanding now is that somebody from the RecCom grabs the water sample and delivers it to the Board of Health. And they arrange to have it tested.
that's my understanding also.
Okay.
What was that, Bill? I missed that.
My understanding is that somebody from the RecCom collects the water sample and delivers it to the Board of Health, and then they have it tested.
And
So
does the Board of Health test it locally, or do they send it to Northeast? They must
I
send
don't-
it.
They may
must
be
send it.
sending it, at this point, they may be sending it to the same lab. The water department has its water tested for E. coli, and that's Pace Analytical Labs.
Oh, in Westboro.
Well, they do have a location in Westboro. That is correct.
Yeah.
They have several locations. We'd have to confirm that. I do know Diane at one point was looking for another lab to do the E. coli testing.
Are we on the first agenda item or the second one?
We're
in the
on,
second one?
we're on item number 2.
Okay.
We're on item number 2. If we want to backtrack a little bit, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be forwarding the draft updates that Mike had sent, and the town sent out an email that the reports are due on the 10th, which I found really odd, which is this coming Saturday.
Right.
But I'm asking for comments from the members back to me on the draft that I send out by Friday.
Right.
Because I will send it out on Monday, the 12th, to the town.
The only thing I noticed when I called it up, it came to the end of it, and I was reading it sort of backwards, and I was seeing a lot of acronyms that I'm hoping were explained earlier in the report, because this is for public consumption.
I will. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at it again.
Okay.
You know, my one of my prior lives, the training was if you're going to use an acronym, the first time you use it is you have to fully spell it out and then put the acronym in. And I've always been like that. I will have to go back and look at it again. Thanks for that.
It probably is all set.
Yeah,
but
now
I
my
have a chance.
personal preference is to avoid acronyms at all costs.
Yeah, but there's an awful lot of things to say over and over and over again. Because I noticed when you talk about the meeting with the Board of Health, I did not see the word algae anywhere in that paragraph.
Please feel free if you to make comments on it and shoot it back to me.
Okay.
But the consensus is right now is I'm going to get the drafts back out to everybody this evening, and I need comments and corrections and things like that back to me by Friday.
Great.
All right. So back to our current action item. Bill, you said you were in work on process charts. Any guesstimate on about how much longer you're going to have to invest in that?
Not much longer there. I mean, it's not a particularly complicated process.
Okay. Because I'm wondering if we want to ask for another meeting with RecCom and Board of Health, probably at a time that's more workable for the Board of Health, or maybe even get on their schedule for their regular meeting.
Yeah, that works if you're willing to meet during the day.
I'm, my schedule is wide
They
open.
typically meet in the afternoon.
Yeah, but my schedule is wide open, so
Yeah.
it's for meeting for me with them is not an issue.
Yeah, I don't think they have a set meeting like the fourth Thursday or whatever. I think they do it when they feel they have a need. That may change.
Yeah. But are we in a position where we think a second meeting to try and move the process forward is supportable?
I think I can have everything ready for the next meeting, our
Okay.
next meeting. I think we should go over it, and then we can determine whether or not we're ready.
Okay. All right.
That sounds like a good plan.
So we're thinking about a meeting with the Board of Health sometime in February.
Yep.
Board of Health RecCom.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Anybody have anything else before we move on?
Do we know anything about the person who's in Diane's position about Matthew?
I do not.
No?
No one. Have you met him, Bill?
Yes, I've been to the Board of Health and introduced myself.
Young?
Yes.
Yes. We're very often
Well, I should say certainly younger than I am.
okay.
I guess
Under
that
30,
kind of
over
relative.
30?
I
I guess I shouldn't say that. We're talking age discrimination here. I don't want to.
no.
Yeah.
It's being recorded, Laura.
Bill's only 30, so what are you talking about?
It's funny. Person's too young, not too old. still age
But
discrimination,
apparently he
right?
has some prior experience, so,
Oh,
Okay.
that's handy. That's nice.
yeah.
So, yeah, maybe I should bounce in and introduce myself sometime and, try and, ease the process on a little bit too. All right. Item number three, and this is going to tie in with item number 4, water quality testing. We touched on it a little bit last month, and unfortunately, Killian is not here this evening. But every year for the past 8 or 9 years, the state has had a water quality testing grants program. And looking at the prerequisites, I think that, our group within the town of Upton would meet the requirements for applying for one of these grants. And the amount of the grants can range from $10,000 to $50,000. I don't have anything yet for the state fiscal year of 2027, but the application process is really involved, and there's lots of wormholes and rabbit holes that you can easily fall down in dealing with anything on the state website. I keep getting distracted all the time, anytime I'm looking for something. So
Would this be a place where we apply for funding for like alum treatment?
that's one of the rabbit holes that you'll get let down. There's also an adjunct for stormwater management and testing, and I know that's kind of near and dear to your heart. But I guess the state has a rather large database on water quality testing and looking particularly at pollution sources and cyanobacteria and just the myriad of things. But there's so many bodies of water in the state that they cannot send state employees out to test everything, so they're relying on more local help from groups like us. And I think this would be an excellent thing to try and get in on. And I want to start working with Killian on looking at the proposal process and writing, getting as much of the paperwork done for 2027 as we possibly can, because the requests will probably have to go in October, early October. So I think now is the opportune time to start working on that. And tying in with that is the town's fiscal year budget. I've sent out a spreadsheet, the updated 2026, looking at budget for our water quality testing. I'm seeing nodding heads, so I'm guessing everybody's had a chance to look at that. There's some red ink on there right now. If we don't get an increase in funding, we're going to be a little bit in the hole. Plus, we ran into some of the testing that we hadn't budgeted for, and we did not build a contingency into the budget. So again, I'm going to ask for some assistance from the other members here about who's got experience dealing with the finance committee. And basically, I want to ask for a 30% increase from our 2025 budget. And I'm wondering how much of an uphill push that's going to be with finance committee.
Well, apparently the guidance that they're getting ready to send out
Is
is
flat
that we
level.
should budget for level service.
Yeah.
So we should be prepared. I mean, it doesn't, you can always ask, right? If you
Sure.
don't ask, you won't get it. But, so at the very least, what we should be able to say is that the tests that we performed last year have risen in cost by whatever, or didn't, and then ask for the appropriate amount at a minimum.
I
So-
already.
So
Oh, go ahead,
are we
Mike.
proposing a warrant article for this funding?
Yes.
Okay.
So Sally
like-
wanted one around stormwater, so that's one warrant article I think we need to talk about, right, Sally?
I don't know if we're there yet, because that's why the grant thing is kind of interesting to me. I definitely think that we have like we need to do, that's like our next stage is really talking about how that stormwater management and what we're going to do about it. But that's going to take a lot of conversation and study before we dive into anything there. And even if we're going to try to treat Pratt Pond with like alum to get it under control, then we have to still need, or to just get it under control for where it is now, phosphorus or phosphates. We still have to figure out how we're going to manage the intake. That's where it's coming from, right? So that and we don't know the answer to that, so we can't come up with a management plan when we don't know the source. So I feel like we need to spend time. And that's why I feel like we need to be passing on this testing to the Board of Health and the Upton Rec, just so that we can turn our energy into, you know, the source and the fixing the phosphorus that's existing there and to that next level, right?
Yeah, and I would invite everyone to go back to one of the TRC drafts that they sent out, dealing with basically I remember a couple of paragraphs in there about the phosphorus levels and stormwater management in the drafts.
They did. I remember that, and they were
Yeah.
those are the ones that we're talking about. But that's gonna.
Yeah.
They all cost money, so big money.
What doesn't cost money?
Money and time. So that's why, you know, being able. I think the idea of putting a grant together is pretty feasible because we've done all this legwork. So our intent to who's ever providing the grant money should be pleased or impressed with the study that we've done, the initial work, right?
I think it actually comes through the EPA, you know, down to the state level, and then the state distributes the grant money.
In terms of the budgeting, if we want level services, what Bill said makes sense, so we can ask for an increase based on that. But I know that last time I think around, the library was asking for a lot more than they asked for, that we were told we could have. But because he made a good case, we ended up getting it. We were all very surprised. So I think sometimes there's a little wiggle room. And if now we have this whole algae thing, which we didn't have before at all. So there's a lot of reasons, and that's something we really do need to protect against, that I think everybody can understand. So I think it wouldn't be that hard to make a case for a little bit bigger increase than they're telling us we're allowed to have.
Well, plus,
question,
go ahead, Mike.
you know, when you're talking about level funding, is that the budget?
Level service, he said.
Well, I'm wondering if they're talking about the line items in the budget.
Yeah,
versus
that's the operating budget, and we
Okay.
can also seek
And we're
money
not,
through
yeah,
warrant.
so the warrant articles is really separate from that.
Yes,
from
and
the
then
operating
probably
budget.
what would happen in that case, the finance committee would elect either to support it or not.
That's right, yeah. So right now, our operating budget is just $1,000. The committee's operating budget is $1,000.
Yeah,
Wrapped
postage.
up with the
That's probably
Conservation
low
Commission
enough
budget.
that asking for a doubling of it is probably not going to raise too much.
Yeah, but yeah, we did. There was a lot of testing that we wanted to do, but we couldn't get to last year, you know, because of budget constraints and the unexpected testing. We don't have any cushion. We have nothing left to do early spring testing. You know, April, May. Actually June, because we don't get any funding until July 1st, correct?
Well, we do have that $1,000. I don't know how much of that we've touched so far.
From in the Concom budget.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we've taken very much of that yet.
Yeah, so we do have something there. But the other thing I want to just talk about was, you know, if we want to consider trying to map the oscillatory bottom mat And I did get a cost estimate from someone to do it using underwater camera for $2,500 at Pratt Pond. I'm wondering if we want to do that. I think I'd like to ask at some point TRC what they think of that whole idea. But
Didn't
I
we get
think
a response from them on that already? Yeah, we did.
TRC, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
TRC doesn't have a whole lot of experience mapping it.
okay.
And I think they floated a couple of different options on how it could be done. I don't think that they were really enthusiastic about the camera, looking at it with the camera because of lighting and blah, 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 blah. I'll have to revisit that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I need to write that. I do think there's probably enough light for it to work, but because the pond is fairly clear, and you've got weeds growing right to the bottom, which are supported by light. I did have another idea, which would be a lot less expensive, but it would be very labor intensive and very messy. And that would be taking grab samples, in a big grid, with something called a petite ponar, which is a little tiny dredge-like instrument, which you basically send it down and you get a sample of the bottom, and you could pull it back up and visually determine whether or not there was an oscillatoria mat there. I mean, we could do it. It would be messy every time you pull up the dredge. You have to open it and spill out the mud, in some sort of a container and then dump it. But you could, we've got GPS available. We could basically, have a team that did that, or at least we could try it to see if it works. And then can rent a Ponar for probably less than about $100.
Oh.
Sounds like a fun summer thing to do.
Yeah, I've done some of that. It's fun might not be the word I would first come up with, but I'll run the GPS and take the notes. How about that?
All right. Well, it's not like you have to dive down there. You're just sending sampling. You're sending a sampling device down, right?
Yeah. But I just, I think I would, knowing the extent of that mat would probably help us to plan some potential future alum treatment.
Yeah,
So-
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I really like that proposal.
That sounds
I
like
ask a
something that
couple
could be in a
questions, Mike?
grant. Could this be in the grant?
That would be waiting longer because the grants wouldn't
Yeah.
come into effect till 2027. But if this was a project for 2026, it's just a matter of what would it cost us to do that? Granted the time and energy, but what's the financial commitment?
What I was kind of intrigued by, Mike, the camera aspect of it. You got that for, you got a quote for that for 2,500. Would we want to do that as a separate warrant article? So, kind of a one-timer thing that completely separate from our asking budget, our water quality sampling budget, because we have evidence to support that there is a benthic map down there. And that's, we discovered that through our routine testing. Would it make more sense to ask for a one-time, more definitive testing that we as a committee cannot handle?
Actually, do you think that would qualify for community preservation funding?
Sure, might.
Like, will you send a link for what kind of camera that is?
Yeah, I can share the email I got from Wendy. It's Wendy Gendron, the person who was doing work in Hopkinton last year. And Wendy, actually, just full disclosure, Wendy and I worked together at the Corps of Engineers. Wendy is still there at the Corps, but her and her husband have this, on the side business, lake management business. She's very knowledgeable about lake management.
So I emailed you and TRC's response to David's question about benthic mapping.
Oh,
Mapping.
You found it. Thank you.
Good.
I mailed it to Mike. It had come to the rest of us already, I thought, so.
Email
Yeah.
service is slow. It's the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of other avenues that we can look at as far as funding this. And going back to the grid sampling that you were talking about, Mike, how labor intensive is that going to be, and how big would the grid squares be? Just
We'd have to
as a guesstimate.
I don't know, maybe 50-foot centers, something like that. That'd be just initial thought. You could do it tighter than that.
No, 50 feet might not be undoable. And would we center the grid on P1 since that's pretty much our ground zero site for all the testing from 2023 till now?
Yeah, well, you'd move out from the deep hole.
Yeah.
And it would probably be somewhat iterative. I mean, if you were moved far enough away that, let's say, assume that you can't actually pick up the benthic mat in the grab sample, then you'd you'd sample until you got to shallow water and the mat disappeared. Basically, I assume it's not going to be the whole pond. It's kind of question I have is at what depth does the mat disappear?
Yeah. And that was one of the questions that I asked at our last meeting is, where does it start and where does it end, and how that's vertically that is, and how far horizontally does it extend? Because like I said, I'm thinking if we center the grid over P1 and then you move 50 feet to the east and you still come up with some, and you move another 50 feet to the east and there's a lot less, and then you move another 50 feet further to the east and you come up with 0, and then you start traveling to the west and you get about the same thing. So you've covered about 300 feet of water east to west to find those edges, and then you would basically repeat the process north and south till you came up with a rough scale of where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how that process would work?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Ideally, you'd have you use GPS to kind of roughly locate your points and where each sample was collected.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never done that, so I'm just thrown out as an idea. I suspect the photographic underwater camera option would probably work at Pratt Pond, but it's possible that there wouldn't be enough light near the bottom. But I suspect there should be. The pond's just not that deep. Most of it. When you get away from the deep hole, most of the pond's like less than 10 feet deep.
Yeah, we get very little blue-green over at P2, which is about 13 feet. We're only sampling down to 12 feet there. And I've seen none at P3 or P4 because they're only about 3 feet deep. Where we do get the highest hits on the blue-green algae are at P1 and P2. So, any other budget related items that we haven't already spent money on? Okay, let's move on to item number 5, and this is pretty much a simple yes/no question. The mission statement that we as a committee are working on is the one that was originally published back in 2022. Do you think it's time we revisited that and looked at updating our mission statement? Anybody?
Did you send it to us? Do we have it? Where is it?
I
the
can
web?
send you the updated copy. It's also on our webpage on the town website.
That's what I figured, yeah.
And it's something owned by us. We don't have to submit it to the town manager or the select board for approval. We can change it as we see fit. So I want to, and like I
It's
said,
rather
it's 4 years old.
lengthy.
Yeah, it's also
rather
4 years
lengthy.
old. Yeah, it's also
Yeah.
4 years old.
Looks pretty good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it stays.
Okay. All right. Item number 6, phase 2 updates. And anybody got anything that we need to send up to TRC? Because I know
Working on
that
it.
they keep asking us for, if we have any inputs or anything we would like them to do. The last thing I asked them about was the benthic mapping, and pretty much got a really ambivalent, we don't do that kind of thing, but we know it's expensive. That's their standard answer. But they're,
When- Dave, when are comments due again? When did we say?
we wanted to have any comments into them by the end of this month, because their
End of
final report
January.
is due to us the end of March.
Okay.
When you say the end of this month, was that December or is it January?
January.
Okay.
I want to have our final updates to them by the end of this month. Okay. Next item is, and we had touched on this a little bit, going on a field trip with Open Spaces to Goss Pond. And Lori, you had said you ran into a gentleman who lives on Shore Drive around Taft Pond and had some questions. I have never seen Taft Pond. I have never seen Goss Pond. I may have seen them in passing, but I've never visited either hole. And I would be really interested in going to both of these ponds with the Open Spaces Committee or not. Anybody else have any thoughts on doing that? Yeah.
Well, I can speak to Goss Pond. It's a little bit of bushwhacking to get to the pond itself, but I think it's a very interesting place to visit. I think I sent you some photos.
Mhm.
I don't know when it was now, maybe 15 years ago or so. We had an open space site walk, and there's a black spruce bog, adjacent to the pond, with black spruce and pitcher plants, and it's an interesting place. And as long as the ice is safe, that's one thing. I know right now it's probably really good. We're going to have a warming trend coming up, I think, so we need to be conscious of that. And there is you can take a trail almost to the pond, but there's probably about 150 feet or so of bushwhacking through low shrubs before you get to the open water ice.
So remember the time that we went there through the Charlotte Carr's house?
Yes,
home?
yeah.
We went that little, there was a little dock there.
Yeah.
Would that be a way to go that would avoid the bushwhacking? Or is it the
Yes.
wrong part of the pond?
No,
Okay.
no, that would avoid the bushwhacking if we had permission from that landowner to access that way. Unfortunately, there isn't any town-owned access to the pond, really.
They would probably give us permission again.
Yeah, if they would allow people to park on their property or near their property and walk in. That would be basically, yeah, there's no bushwhacking then, as long as that it's like what it was like many years ago when Laura and I were there. It was like this remnant of a dock. It's not really a dock.
Bill
There
came
are
too,
some-
I think. Right, Bill? You were with us, weren't you?
I was there once, yes. I
Yeah,
have some pictures.
There was one time when we went out there with kayaks, and I think that's what you're thinking about, because Tom Dodd was there.
No, it was just you, me, and Bill. You and I went once with snowshoes. That was different. But when we went through Charlotte's, I
Well,
think,
I was out there with Mike, Marcella, Tom, and did Kathy come with us?
He might have, and that was with the snow. That was
Yep.
when it was
Yeah,
very-
well,
yeah.
it was with the
The
ice.
pictures
That
I
was with
remember
open
seeing, it
space.
was in the middle of winter.
Yep.
And
But,
we've had some winter so far, and that's why I think now would be kind of an opportune time. Mike, you're on open spaces?
Well, but Bill's the chair.
Oh, okay. Well, if
It was just a thought. It could be a shared event, or it wouldn't have to be a shared
Yeah.
event.
well, I'm up for it. I'm always up for adventures.
if these were normal times, I would be too, but I think I have to bow out this time. In terms of Taft Pond, it's a different issue. So let me explain to you what happened. So a man who drives the senior van told me that he lives on Taft Pond and he wondered why the level got so low every winter. And he was surprised that it seemed to be something of a drawdown, and he wondered why that might be. So I mentioned it to Mike, and I think he was maybe going to mention it to you, Bill, to see if that was indeed the case. And if it's not the case, why does the level get low? And could there be a leak in the dam, or could it be beavers siphoning off water? Or what this man also noticed was that when he looked behind his house where there used to be sort of a wetland, he said it looks practically like a body of water now. So there's a lot more water there. So water is moving, certainly shifting around there, and probably is something we should at least look into. And he also wondered, so there was that. And then he said, I'm just curious about Taft Pond in general, what the history of the pond is. So I go, ding, 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 ding. Sounds like a high school research project to me. So I know, Bill, you like to do research, and Killian, you might, Dave, you're probably looking for things for Killian to do.
Mhm.
And that might be something that he could do.
Yep, I have a call with Tara Bennett tomorrow morning, and that's one of the topics of conversation is a research project. Bill, would you be willing to assist Mr. Killian on not doing the research for him, but helping point him in the right direction where he could find this information?
Well, yeah, so yes, I'd be happy to do that. Now, I have access to several research sites that I pay money to have access to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I can just tell him to go, oh, just go to this site
Okay.
without having him sign up for it and pay for it.
Okay.
In that case there, I'd probably be giving him stuff I found.
Okay. But yeah, and is there a dam on Taft Pond that
There
has
is.
removal? Okay, so it does have stop logs.
Boards, it has the stop logs, yes.
Is there a drawdown of some kind in the winter?
I do know that the DPW, at least in the past, had been managing the boards and how many were in at different times of year.
Okay, great. This is, the man's name, I believe, is Bruce Mitchell. And he
And
is
then,
so interested in this that he has watched our meetings on the cable channel.
What else was I going to say? Yeah, and there is possible that there's beaver activity above the pond that has
There is.
impounded some of the water that would normally be in the pond.
Right.
There is I've talked to Burnett family, and there's a significant amount of beaver activity going on. There's the Burnetts have a pond, they call it Sterling Pond, and then roughly between Sterling Pond and Taft Pond is a very large wetland, which is impounding more water than it used to. in recent years because of beavers.
Hmm. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I was getting some comments last year that the water level was pretty low.
Hmm.
So,
You know, I don't know if it's possible, but if Killian or someone could do a little bit of research on the history of Pratt Pond too, that we can include in this TRC report. I've been going through annual reports, and I'll have some information based on those, but and also some like Concom filings. But the deep history of Pratt Pond, I don't know, anything about. Like, when was the first dam built there?
well, so I have seen a map or a lot layout for the Harvard leased land, which would be the late 1600s, early 1700s. And it shows Pratt Pond.
Hmm.
And that information is available on the Harvard's website.
Harvard maps. Could you?
Well, you'd have to go, I forget exactly where you find it, but it's the Hopkinton land. I mean, that land was donated to Harvard. And they had a whole board of trustees for them managing it. And they leased out parts of it. The lease receipts were intended to help people pay for school and so on. But they have a lot of the history of that land available on Harvard's website somewhere.
Harvard
And one of the things
University?
they have is pictures of some of the land that was leased, basically plot maps for the leases.
Could you like point us to that, or maybe summarize that somehow?
I can at least send you a link to it.
Please
Okay.
do.
Send it to us all, right?
But I do remember seeing one map which included a couple of lots around Pratt Pond.
Well, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
From 1600s, that'll be fascinating. Great.
I know there's
We are nerds.
there's a postcard from the early 1900s, I think, that implies that it was a swimming beach at that time, or a town beach, kind of.
Kind of. I think the sand beach was created by the Kiwanis Club
Yeah.
in the 50s, late 50s. Because I was trying to figure out, we're working to replace the sand there. I just kind of determined that it was 75-year-old sand. But yes, that area in that cove area was used. There was a name for it,
And Bill, any of these things you found, please, if you could just send a few bullets, because you're deeper in history than I am for the pond right now.
That's great.
I'm asking because I really don't know. Is there a town archivist that manages all the town records, or is that done through the town clerk's office, or more of the different departments?
The custodian of the remaining town records.
Okay.
And I think
Say that again, Bill.
The town clerk is the custodian of basically the town records, and that includes I don't know how many, but basically everything was in bound books. And based upon what I have, because I got images that were created when they did some rehab on the books. There's gaps. It's kind of weird. And then in terms of other historical information, that would be whatever the Historical Society happens to have.
What about digital treasures, digital archives? Has any of stuff ever been digitized?
Yes, there's a handful of Upton-related stuff,
but just small
elsewhere. In fact, I was looking the other day for information about abolitionist activities, and found a handful of letters from some of the abolitionists from the mid-1800s. talking amongst themselves and arranging programs and so on. So really, but
Interesting
yeah, so
stuff.
one of those sites, the Digital Commonwealth sites, has
Yeah.
the very early maps from the 1700s, maps from the 1700s.
Do we know who Pratt was? Why it was called Pratt Pond? Or did it have an earlier, maybe indigenous name? That's
I haven't found any evidence of that. My I think Pratt was presumably perhaps somebody in England who happened to have some interest in the land.
Yeah, because Pratt Hill, which is right up behind us, or right up behind me, I should say, same name. So yeah, it got to be somebody semi-important.
Yeah, but not. I think sometime before Upton was founded.
Was incorporated, yeah. So yeah, this could be a very interesting project for young Mr. Killian, because I just listening to you guys talk about it, I'm intrigued, and ooh, what can we learn? Interesting stuff. Okay, so we have come to the end of our evening's agenda. Anybody have any items that we haven't touched on that they would like to discuss? So I'm taking by that we have nothing, and do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a
Second.
second?
Second.
And we have a motion and a second, and all in favor? Aye. All right. Board motion, and we will call this meeting at a close. Good night, everyone.
Happy New Year, everybody.